Welcome to the Explainer. Today we are taking a deep, pretty terrifying descent straight into true zero. We're looking at this incredibly grim dark parable centered around a figure known as Sir Brain and his mysterious companion, the Sage. Right off the bat, I have to tell you, this is definitely not your standard hero's journey. It is a completely uncanny, metaphysical exploration of existence, philology, and just the absolute void. We're going to examine the terrifying architectural logic of a reality that literally wants to erase you, and how a living entity even begins to navigate that kind of dread.
Okay, let's dive into this chilling literary anchor from the text. Everything transitory is only a parable. Now, if you know the source material, you'll recognize this as a harsh inversion of an older, much more hopeful chorus. But here, it's been stripped entirely of its redemption. It immediately sets our grimdark tone. It introduces this wild philological concept, the idea that an individual life with all its messy struggles and temporary little victories is basically just a text waiting to be read. And in this universe, it is waiting to be read by the void itself.
Which brings us to a massive existential question. What happens when the universe decides you are simply a soft error? I mean, really think about the dread of that. In this narrative, Sir Brain isn't some triumphant knight in shining armor. He's a glitch. Actually, scratch that. It's more like he's a temporary anomaly actively resisting his own deletion. We aren't talking about the standard fear of physical death here. We are talking about the sheer, absolute dread of ultimate erasure from the universal ledger. It's terrifying. But man, it's such a compelling philosophical starting point.
Section 1. The Pull of Pure Negation.
To really wrap our heads around this dread, we need to visually map out the geography of this uncanny journey. It kicks off in the shallow reaches of the obsidian sea beneath this unrelenting dark star. And this isn't normal water. The text notes specifically that the dark water accepts no weight and gives no reflection. It's pure transition. From there, Sir Brain and the Sage cross the threshold into the tower, navigate its mythical, scale-defying corridors, and finally push toward the final lightless chamber. Every single step up feels less like progress and more like a further subtraction of their justification to exist.
And this brilliantly illustrates the staggering contrast of their journey. Look at the starting point. Out in the shallow reaches, Sir Brain actually still possesses residual flames, a functioning mind and heart, along with memory and a temporary form. But look at the destination. The final chamber is true zero. It is absolute silence. It is literally described as the color of canceled light. They are moving from this state of lingering temporary resistance straight into a ghastly, precise destination that is just an open invitation to the purest form of negation.
Section 2. Architecture of the Absolute.
Now, the building itself is practically a physical manifestation of deletion. To grasp its architectural logic, we have to define what a soft error actually is here. In this metaphysical universe, it is a living parable of resistance. It's a temporary anomaly that the universal ledger has measured and found totally insufficient. And here is the truly chilling part. The walls of the tower itself carry the texture of every single soft error that has ever been measured and failed. The structure is literally built out of these failed measurements. And it rises up entirely without a foundation. No way, right? Just built on sheer negation.
Because of this, the architecture is almost mythically severe. The corridors spiral according to these ancient ratios that predate any denser or lighter conjugation. The tower completely refuses every consoling scale. It won't comfort you. As Sir Brain climbs, his compromised armor literally scrapes against stone that remembers nothing living. The environment is actively hostile to the very concept of continuity, designed entirely to dwarf and erase the temporary anomaly that is Sir Brain.
Section 3. Parables of a Living Error.
Now, what's really interesting about this breakdown is how clinically the text analyzes his internal struggle. He isn't fighting with a sword, he is fighting with residual will. He steadies this residual dual flame serving as his heart and mind. He anchors himself to one single fixed point, the memory of the cartographer, and he carries his soft error against the universal ledger, nano-stabilized purely by stolen fire. He is a living error, a parable that negation just hasn't quite finished reading yet. He resists immediate subtraction, but he does so absolutely without any illusion of victory or survival. He knows exactly how this ends.
The inadequate becomes an event. That phrase is just so profound. Sir Brain's residual will, as compromised as it is, becomes the exact event the tower is now examining. Every single step upward measures his remaining continuity against true zero. I mean, think about that. The tower doesn't exist to fight him. It exists solely to complete the reading of his parable. His inadequacy is quite literally the subject of the tower's ultimate uncaring study.
Section 4. Decoding the hybrid script.
Let's move on and see how this builds on the deep lore. Right before the final ascent, Sir Brain finds this open side chamber lacking a guardian. Inside, there's a single residual black metal lectern etched with a dense hybrid script. This data clinically unpacks the metaphysical phenomena of this realm. It maps out the exact pressure gradients linking the edge of negation to the physical forest. It outlines the gravitational signatures of the high time, and crucially, it documents the residual pathways by which a living error could still force temporary embodiment. This is basically the dense architectural source code of reality itself.
Sir Brain approaches this lectern knowing full well there is no permanence here. The dark apotheosis doesn't forbid knowledge, it tests its final relevance. So he absorbs these ratios with total clinical attention. But here's the kicker. This information isn't some secret weapon to defeat the tower. It's actually a birding. It's data that must be carried into the final test of relevance as he undergoes his ultimate erasure.
Section 5. The dark apotheosis awaits. With the essential data secured inside his residual aura, Sir Brain leaves the side chamber and turns toward the final stair. The dark apotheosis is actively awaiting him, and we need to define this precisely. This is not an ascension to power or godhood like you might expect in traditional fantasy. It's the exact opposite. It is the ultimate expenditure of existence. It is a deliberate, agonizing shedding of the self and all justification, demanding that the living parable be brought straight into the final, lightless chamber.
So, the crucial point is understanding the staggering difference between just dying and being unread. On one side, we have existential finality. That's the traditional ending, the simple ceasing of a physical pulse. But on the other side, we have pure negation. This is the absolute cold attraction that Sir Brain is marching toward. It's complete erasure from the universal ledger. It is the unreading of the parable entirely, as if the text simply never existed in the first place.
And as he climbs, the text notes, "The indescribable is here accomplished." It's a chilling shift. What an old chorus once called this warm, eternal feminine pull upward has completely resolved into the absolute cold attraction of the tower's pure negation. The invitation to be erased is total, and it is inescapable.
Yet, as we reach the final, agonizing moments of the narrative in this explainer, we are left with this haunting image. The obsidian sea continues to wait below, the tower continues to invite him above, and caught right between that cold invitation and the dark water, the living error just keeps climbing. He is still unerased. He is still measuring the distance. The parable stubbornly refuses to finish speaking until that very last step.
Which brings us to this final provocation to ponder. What remains when the ledger is closed and the parable finally finishes speaking? Does the knowledge Sir Brain carried even matter at true zero? Or is the architecture of absolute silence the only ultimate reality? It's a heavy, beautiful kind of existential dread, isn't it? Well, I hope this explainer gave you a lot to think about, and I absolutely encourage you to explore the deep lore of this text for yourself. Until next time, keep questioning the ledger.